Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of the Cinematropolis.com, your home to thoughtful conversations on film, and this year's podcast media partner for the Dead Center 2022 Film Festival. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and today we are taking a stroll right down memory lane to learn a little bit more about one of my favorite programs growing up, The Reading Rainbow, as well as some of the talent there at LeVar Burton. So that's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be interviewing two of the filmmakers behind the brand new documentary about LeVar Burton and The Reading Rainbow, Butterfly in the Sky. We're going to start with a quick word about what inspired the film before going a little further into what makes this film unique and special. And then we'll close out the conversation by talking just a little bit about how you can watch the documentary at this year's Dead Center Film Festival and even beyond.
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow.
So really quickly, for those of you listeners who are maybe not familiar with the documentary, according to Dead Center's website, Butterfly in the Sky tells the story of the beloved PBS children's series, Reading Rainbow, its iconic host, LeVar Burton, and the challenges its creators faced in cultivating a love of reading through television. And joining me today are the co-directors of the film, Brett Whitcomb and Bradford Thomason, the co-directors of the film. Welcome, Bradford and Brett.
Hello. Hello. How's it going?
Doing great. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. I'm really looking forward to talking with you more about the film. Now, listeners, before we get too far in today's conversation, I just wanted to quickly note that if you are listening to the show today and you're enjoying this conversation or any of the Dead Center 2022 Film Festival coverage, please make sure to subscribe to the show so that you can get all of the new episodes that we have coming out over the next couple of weeks covering so many of the films playing at this year's film festival. But without further ado, I just really want to dive into this conversation with Bradford and Brett. I'll kick things off. And I'd love to hear each of your perspectives on this. What would you say is sort of like the key inspiration for the film?
You know, we have a tendency to make films that are inspired by things from our childhood. Pretty much every documentary we made comes from some aspect of our childhood that stuck with us as adults and, sparked a curiosity as to, what became of that thing and mostly what became of the people who were a part of that thing. And this is no different. I mean, we both watched Reading Rainbow growing up. We had different experiences with it, but it was a very important show to us. And, one day, about a year and a half ago, Brett came to me and said, hey, has anyone done a documentary about Reading Rainbow? And I was like, oh, I don't think so. And so we started researching and kind of revisiting those feelings of watching it as young people and just jumped right in.
Brett, how about you?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm probably running away from of getting older, maybe more than Brad, but like we're just chasing things that like shaped us, as human beings from our childhood, things that like meant stuff to us. And whether it's, animatronic robots or wrestling, or malls, and Reading Rainbow fits within that in our subconscious. And I grew up in a super small town where we weren't traveling a lot. We didn't go anywhere. So when I put on Reading Rainbow, it was like opened up my world, and I saw different places that I otherwise would have never seen, and documentary footage that I'd never experienced before. So for me, it was probably like the first time I ever saw handheld camera work out in the field, just kind of run and gun. And I think that, stuck with both of us.
Where do you even start? It's such a program that was so close to many of the elder millennials, or maybe even maybe you could say younger Gen Xers. I mean, really inspired people to go out and read and show people the possibility of imagination. But where did you start? It's such a big thing to tackle. Bradford, anything you want to say about that?
We started with LeVar Burton. I mean, honestly, because I think he's most people's entry point into the show. He's among the things people remember the most. Along with the theme song and, of course, a handful of really special children's books. But he, we knew that we couldn't make the film without him being a part of it. We knew that there's no Reading Rainbow documentary without LeVar Burton. So we reached out and, showed him our work and made a pitch deck, kind of presenting the film we wanted to make and how it would look. And he saw what we did, saw what we had done, and said, I feel like y'all are the right people to make this film. And sort of concurrent to that, we reached out to the creator, Twyla Liggett, and the producer and director, Larry Lancet and Cecily Lancet, and everyone was just on board to tell the story. So we felt like we needed to get the key people first, and then I think get their stories and really sort of uncover all the passion they had for making the show. And once we started to get that, we started reaching out to other people who made it, and then the kids who did the book reviews, and kids and people who were inspired by it growing up. And we just had this really great collection of passionate people who made it and people who were inspired by it. And, we let their stories tell our story.
Brett, anything you might add to that?
I mean, no, that's exactly what happened. And I think just LeVar saying that we were the right people to make the film gave us the confidence and the energy to like explore, really dive into the film. It like gave us permission to do it almost. And so it was like, he was the face of my childhood for this show. So to be even talking to him on the phone was completely insane.
Dream come true, right? Like it's like speaking to like a movie star.
Absolutely.
Brett, something you were saying a moment ago, just about how, growing up in a small town, you felt like through the Reading Rainbow, you were able to experience a lot more. It really reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from a Song of Ice and Fire series from George R.R. Martin. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm probably going to butcher it and fans are going to hate me, but it's something to the effect of the man who doesn't read lives only one life, but the man who reads books lives thousands of lives, something to that effect. I couldn't help but think about that quote when you were talking about, hey, I grew up in a small town. I didn't have a lot of opportunities to become exposed to things. So with that in mind, I mean, why would you say that, reading and literacy, whether that's actual reading book literacy or media literacy, are more important today than they have been in years past?
I just think it opens your world to new things, and it allows when you're reading, this is so weird because I'm like compelled to quote the movie because everyone in the movie has said good things about this. So I think it's Ed who said in the film that your mind fills in the blanks when you're reading a book. So it allows you to use your imagination, and I think Reading Rainbow, the way that it used television to promote books. So when the show was over, you wanted to, like Brad, a big thing for Brad was the what was it, Brad, at school? Like they came,
book fair.
The book fair. It like turns you on to like go get these books and read them over and over. And I think it's like you're reading them with a community and your family, and you're reading them over and over. And so I think that the show was unique in that it for me, it showed me new places that I otherwise would have never seen living in a small town and not traveling a lot. And at the same time, it encouraged me to read, which honestly, I didn't get encouraged to read a lot. So for me, it was like a double whammy.
Brad, anything you want to say related to that? Sort of the importance of media literacy and how that program really helped cultivate it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a part of our film a little bit, but it's, I think the fear is that television is counter to reading, and that if you're trying to get kids to read by watching television, you're undercutting the mission because they're sitting in front of a television and not sitting in front of a book. But, I think people discovered really quickly that television was just a tool, to kind of put books into kids' hands. And I don't know that now screens are just, people were worried about television, and now, there are just screens everywhere, and, everyone's looking at a screen all day long, every day. And of course, people read on those screens too, which I think, sort of makes it complicated. But I don't know. I think that the act of, and Brett, to echo what Brett said, I think the act of sort of reading and using your own imagination to fill in the visual gaps, and not necessarily having that put in front of on the TV in front of you, or on the iPad in front of you, or whatever, where you're just kind of turning your brain off, and your eyes are just going back and forth. When you're reading, you're building the story in your mind, and I think that encourages so many things. It encourages creativity. It encourages like a broader perspective on the world. It requires you to put yourself in the character's shoes, I think, when you're reading in a way that you don't necessarily when you're watching television or watching streaming content or whatever. So I think it's definitely necessary for kids to read more than ever.
Awesome. No, I think that hits the nail on the head. And again, just loving that we're able to sort of immortalize exactly what the reading rainbow meant to, a certain generation and trying to pass that along. It's really inspiring. I wanted to circle back on, of course, LeVar Burton. You guys have both mentioned him. I mean, what an icon. So I have to ask, I mean, what was it like working with him through the process on this film? And Brad, we'll start with you on this one.
I mean, after that call, when we talked to him on the phone, which was surreal. I mean, speaking to LeVar Burton, the minute we heard his voice, we were both, I mean, I think we both went silent for a minute because we had to fully process that. And then of course, after sort of getting his blessing to tell the story, we went about kind of developing and crafting our film. And then we did an interview with him for the film. And it was a lengthy interview. It was the biggest interview time wise and in terms of like preparation and things I think that we did for the entire film. And working with him that day was incredible. I mean, he was very generous with his time. He was very engaged in what we were talking about, and he seemed very committed to, giving us what we were looking for with our questions. And not pandering to our questions, but giving thoughtful, smart, funny answers that made for good documentary. And we never felt like he didn't want to be there. And that's a huge deal. We've interviewed a lot of people over the years, and, he was just, his answers are all great. And we have so many that we couldn't use, so it was just great working with him.
Brett, anything to add?
Well, yeah, we rented out the LA Public Library, and to have him, to have that entire library and to just be bringing equipment in to those, elevators that are God knows how old, and just the experience of walking through that quiet library and just, and then LeVar coming in and sitting down. And like Brad said, he was just so generous with his time. And I think a lot of the questions he hadn't thought about in a long time. And I think so he really enjoyed the interview, and it was really long. It took, the whole day with breaks, and I think it opened up things that he hadn't thought about. And so it was hard to choose, what to put in the film because of a lot of the topics that we covered, and we only have an hour and a half or so in the film. And so it was probably, for at least for me, one of the most enjoyable and just kind of, I cried, like several times looking at a monitor and listening to the way he would his answers to certain questions, and Brad was interviewing him. So it was an experience, I don't think we'll forget.
I'm super excited for our listeners today to have the opportunity to check out the film. And just one more question before we start to wind down here. I mean, documentary filmmaking is a lot different than other forms of filmmaking for sure. So I'd love to hear, I mean, were there any unique themes or ideas or surprises that came up either, when you were filming or when you were editing to sort of finalize the film that maybe you weren't expecting?
I mean, I think we tried to have a pretty good handle on the story we wanted to tell going in. And I do think that the story we ultimately told is the one we set out to tell. But I think that, it was just a discovery of like even a deeper passion and love for making the show than we anticipated. And I know, people work on a television series for so long, they're going to have these feelings. And, we have people in our film get really emotional when reflecting on their time. And I'm not sure we were fully prepared for just how emotional people would get, reflecting on that time. And, just the sort of collective love. I mean, we knew there were a lot of teachers who were a part of it, but it seemed like everyone we interviewed, like it's not everyone, but so many of the people we interviewed had a background in teaching. And that was kind of a revelation and something we wanted to make sure to touch on as we started to put the film together. And, I don't know, it just ended up really feeling like just an amazing group of people who made this happen. And you sort of really understand why it's just not a fluke that it was such an amazing thing for so long,
Brett, anything to add?
I think just quickly, like, Brad and I make these films, and we're directing on set together. We're coming up with ideas together. Brian Storkel was a massive part of this film, of coming up with ideas, and we kind of think we know what kind of film we're making with interviews and archives, and we have films that we are inspired by, that we're kind of using as kind of like guidelines, but also trying to make something new. But I think I was always surprised when Brad would send me something and try something new in an edit and just blow me away, like with some of, with just taking so many endless hours of these interviews and this archive footage that spans 26 years and crafting it into this story. So I think, the editing in this is like, it really shines, and super proud of what Brad's done.
Well, thank you. Yeah, 26 years.
That's awesome. Well, fantastic. Again, we're going to start to wind down here. I just wanted to call out really quickly for those of our listeners here in Oklahoma who are considering watching this at Dead Center. So if you are attending Dead Center and you want to catch Butterfly in the Sky at the festival, it is the closing headliner film for us, and it'll be playing Sunday, June 12th at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time at Harkins Bricktown. However, I know that this is a very busy weekend for you guys, and there's probably other places that this is playing. So if you could just tell listeners, where else can they expect to get to, maybe some of our listeners who are not local to Oklahoma, where else can they find the film or watch it when it comes out?
Well, it's premiering at Tribeca on the 9th of June. So, and it'll be in New York, starting the 9th for a few screenings after. I believe there's a screening on the 9th, on the 10th, and on the 17th. And then, obviously what you said about Dead Center. There'll be festivals after that. I think it's playing at Oak Cliff in Dallas, I believe on the 20. I got to look at my calendar here, but Oak Cliff Film Festival, which we love very much, it's playing there on the 23rd. Is that right, Brad?
Yeah, it's the 23rd, and my mom will be there if anyone wants to meet my mom.
Yeah, we're from Houston, Texas originally, so that's about as close as we can get, and that's a great festival. But yeah, and then there'll be others down the line for sure. We think in terms of where it'll wind up, we don't know yet, so we'll you have to check back with us on that.
I think that leads me to my next question. Is there anywhere online, whether it's your website, is there like a website or social media channels people can check out for more news on the film?
Yeah, for sure. They can check out I think the best way would be Instagram, and it's Butterfly in the Sky doc.
Excellent. Well, listeners, check it out. If you can't attend Dead Center or Tribeca, make sure to follow that account so you can find out when it'll be playing somewhere near you. Brad, thank you guys so much for your time today. Congratulations on the film's release. You have a double weekend booked here. I mean, you've got Oklahoma City and New York. Congratulations. This is going to be a big weekend. I'm super excited for you guys to show your amazing documentary for audiences.
Yeah, thank you. We just want to say thank you to Dead Center for programming the film, and making it closing night is just such an honor. We can't even. It's amazing, and we really hope that people enjoy the screening. So thank you to Dead Center.
Absolutely. Thank y'all.
And listeners, again, if you want to find out more information, whether it's about Butterfly in the Sky or any of the other films playing at this year's festival, you can head on over to deadcenterfilm.org. And there's also some more information about the badge opportunities, or you could even purchase an individual ticket to see the film. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll catch you again next time.